Good morning or good afternoon, wherever you may be, or good evening or good night. This is Jen at JensArtyInclinations, a place to create, share and play. Hello everyone, back for JJ Weekly-ish, where we build our creative confidence as we build junk journal things. So I'm just starting out with, I've got a couple of glues, including a glue stick. I'm obviously going to ink as I go through because that's what I like to do. And then I've got a few bits and bobs to decorate things with. Scissors, of course, and a ruler, tearing ruler as we call it, so I can tear edges. Lots of lovely book pages, that's what I'm using, but you can use any paper. And then I've just got some other little offcuts of paper that I'm going to use for backing strips. Now this is what we're going to make. Now we have lots of names for things in junk journals, but I think we most commonly refer to this as a stacked pocket. And what I've done is I've done this one where you can actually put in your strips all the way down to the bottom, so it's hollow all the way through, and it just has the little separations. So starting out by just pasting some sheets together, because these particular pages were really, really thin pages from a history book. So I just wanted them to have a little bit more structure, a little bit more firmness as we're making our pockets. Now, what we're doing today is we're going to repeat a process. So it's kind of like you can work out what you might do for a mass make, or you can work out what your design is that you like for your multiple pockets. And truly, the best way to do that is make a bunch. So that's my tip today. Make a bunch of the same thing. And this is going to be a little bit of a reoccurring theme in this series because it's a great way to find your style. It's a great way to refine a design, and that's what we're looking at today. And it's a great way to come up with new ideas because as you make it, you naturally change things when you're making them with your own hands. And if you look at the beginning, you'll be surprised how many times, if you make like 6 of something, if you do 6 paintings, the 6th one will look totally different to the first one. If you make 6 pockets, the 6th one will often look totally different to the first one. So it's a great way to get you comfortable. And I think what happens is you get more confident as you go along. So that's what we're playing with. Already on the second pocket here, I've made a subtle change. On the first one, I did 2 pages and I drew them into the centre. On this one, I'm just putting the page in half and I've just torn off the edges around the actual writing because I wanted that. Now, glue stick will help it because it won't matter where you cut to make your pockets. It'll all stay stuck together if you do it, more carefully than what I'm doing here. And when you're cutting it, they'll all be stuck down. So that's quite helpful and quite handy. The nice thing when you're doing these multi-stacked pockets with book pages is you kind of get a natural little measure. So you can see where the text line ends on your first one, so you can cut your next pocket to that. Or you might like to make them bigger as you go down, for instance, or smaller as you go down, so you can, go up a couple of text lines to cut your next one. So yeah, it gives you lots of fun and flexibility. So here I haven't needed to tear off the edges because I'm folding it back around in a little tube. Now when you do your little tubes, you can just do your little thumb hole in the front and leave them as that, but you'll notice I ended up actually then deciding that I would glue the tubes together all the way down. But you'll see that as we go along. But this is your classic pocket. Make a tube, cut them down, put a little thumb hole in the front and stick them in a little stack on top of each other. But, decided I'd do something a little bit different today, and I just use them like little pieces of card that I've just stiffened up by folding the book page around itself. So yeah, when you do yours, have a play. Muck about, see what you like to do. Some book pages you might like to do one way, other book pages you might like to do another way. A lot of book pages are actually nice and firm and thick enough to not have to double up. So then that can often give you lots more flexibility. If you pinch the front, you can actually do that little half hole easier. Now, I do find it's nice to put a little edge on stacked pockets because then you can actually see quite easily the difference. Another way to see the difference is to use different coloured paper. So on this first one that I'm putting together, I decided that I would keep the little tube and I would use just some washi tape to stick down the backs of them. Just never done that before, thought I'd give it a try. Surprisingly, it worked out. It's really nice when you try something new and it actually works out. So I glued them all to each other first, and then I glued around the 3 sides to glue them down onto the backing that I've chosen. So that was just a piece of scrap that I was using to test stamps before I stamped them into my actual journal. And so now it's a piece of backing for my little stacked pockets. Now I could have left the top open, but I did decide in the end I would stick the top one down as well because I just liked that finish. And then I put a little decoration on it. So little offcut of brown paper bag that I've been using for something else. And then I just grabbed a page number and I inked around the edge of that again and I stuck that on top. I just did a rough tear out. So that was our first one. Second one, I decided to actually stick the tubes together. That's what I was talking about earlier. So yeah, really all I'm doing is I'm making a really thick card. Now, little tip, if you want to do this with a really nice professional finish, put your pages down, stick them together with your glue stick. Make sure it's fully covered, like just tilt it in the light to make sure it's all covered completely over the page and there's no little gaps. Stick them together, put them under weight overnight. So that means just put them under a stack of books. You can clamp them together, put them in a proper book press if you've got one. That's called laminating your pages. And it's laminating them without using a laminator and putting them in plastic. But they really adhere to each other beautifully. So yeah, if you want a really nice professional finish, go for that. If you're playing about like me, these will last beautifully as well. So, you know, there's not a huge amount of difference, but that just gives you that polish on the end if you need it. On this one, instead of making the tube, I decided that I would actually stick it all down to itself. So that's what I'm doing here. And again, I don't have to actually tear off the edges because when I put it around itself, see, you've got the text right up to the edge. So again, just cutting them down here. So when you're seeing me cut down each of these long tubes or long strips, what these do is form the little pockets that you stack on top of each other. That's all I'm doing. So you can choose to just have the text, you can choose to have text in some of the edges. You saw the first one I did with a piece of map page that was out of a history book. So yeah, lots of versatility. Now, another way that you can just get a slightly wider pocket and get a little bit more out of your paper if you're having to double it over is to not tear off the long sides of the paper, and see how when I've folded it around, then I've still got the text right to the edge. So yeah, look, lots of variations, just little subtle things that different people will do differently, and you can play about and find your own little different way of doing it. So here's the next one that I'm sticking down. Now on this one, I decided that I'd do longer pockets and I've stuck them down to each other. So I haven't got a tube on this one, so I'm just using them like little pieces of card, and they all go onto a little piece of backing paper that was an offcut of a picture, and it's a slightly thicker stock as well. So now it's a little bit of colour behind this piece, and I quite like that. Again, I'm just doing them all as one big long tube. So the bottoms of each of the strips, so there's 1, 2, 3 pockets. The bottoms of the top 2 pockets are not stuck down, so that when you put something in it, it goes all the way through to the bottom. To decorate this one, I just threw a sticker on it and then I popped a little number on it just to give it a little finish on, again, another little piece of, you know, paper, card, edge of a book page, something like that. But what I did this time was I added a little bit of thread behind it. That's something I'm doing quite a bit of lately because I always I always get these little offcuts of thread from the sewing machine, from all sorts of bits and pieces, and it's a shame to lose them completely. I also love using that floss that you get for embroidery. So, you know, you get so many lovely colours in those, so I like using those too. I'm rounding the corners too of my backing sheets usually because I like that look. Enjoying. Now, I need a new hole punch because my hole punch is not working, and try as I might to use all those really cool methods that everybody suggests, sandpaper and alfoil and all sorts of things, it's not sharpening up. So maybe it's, because I'm not very good at looking after my stuff, and maybe it's buckled a bit. Anyhow, it's only one of them, so I can replace one. The others are working beautifully. So on the last one, you know me and my brown paper shopping bags. I love my brown paper shopping bags. So, of course, I had to use that. And look at how beautifully the book pages pop off that background. Now, I also have these stickers that had these really massive, big white edge around them. So I wanted a butterfly on the bottom, but I fussy cut it down a little bit so that I got it a little bit closer. And then I just preferred that look. And to add a little bit of difference, I used a little piece of waxed thread for the little antennas because, life is too short to be cutting out butterfly antennas, let me tell you. On the top, I've used one of my labels that I've made up. Often when I've got offcuts on my desk, I could tidy them away. And that doesn't happen very often, so I tend to do things like make labels out of them or use them as backings for, little words that I'm liking on book pages or page numbers and barcodes and all that sort of thing. So and I do lots and lots of blank labels, so I kind of have them ready to go. This is another thing that you can do is you can get out your paints or whatever you like to use. Maybe it's your chalk pastels, maybe it's your inks, whatever it is, but you can get them out and play with those. So I'm just adding a touch of colour and then I'll pop that aside and we'll go back to it in a minute. Alrighty, now the next one. I've done the same as what I did with the others. I've just stacked some little pockets on top of each other, and this time I thought, let's have a look and see what it looks like with washi tape around it. And then the backing I used was actually an envelope that I was trying to pull apart and just didn't quite work, very well when I stamped and so forth on it. So now I've got this little natural flap. And then I decided, that'd be really cool. It could be a flap and it could have a journaling spot on the back. And this is the one that I would really like to do more of. So I'd like to do more on just single backing sheets. But also I love the idea of a little stacked pocket that has a little flip-flap bit that you can use with a journaling spot. So this is definitely something that I would not have worked out had I not been just playing with some bits and pieces on my desk and seeing what came out of it. So that's why I haven't been too prescriptive in what we're going to make in this one. So the basic idea is you either create a tube or just some simple pieces of card. You pop them on top of each other with your little thumb holes, and then you've got a stacked pocket. I want you to work out what design you choose. So I've given you just some subtle differences between the different ones I've done, but each of those have created a slightly different result, and each of them have helped me find a little bit of an idea on what kind of design I like to do, perhaps, when I'm doing stacked pockets. So that's what we're playing with. We're just having fun and we're exploring. We're just doing a stacked pocket, but we're doing a bunch. So do a bunch, and I bet you'll be surprised. Even if you try to do them the same, I bet even in just the way you apply the glue, even in the way that the materials that you use, something will make them different to each other, and you'll be quite surprised. That is kind of finding your own design. So there they all are together, all done. So there we are. That's a wrap for another JJ Weekly-ish. And this time we were design and refine, and we just used stacked pockets to do that for ourselves. So I hope you'll enjoy going and creating your own. I really want you to go and play. I'd love it if you could leave me a comment below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed what you saw today. And of course, please subscribe if you haven't already. I will see you next time. And in the meantime, keep creating. Enjoy!